Okay, hello, you trader nerds and you Mr. TikTokers. We got everybody together and for a very exciting little combined session today. So I'm very excited to introduce to everybody. You know him, you love him. He's the myth, the man, the legend, the man that taught me everything that there is to know about the 1-1X trades, whether it be 1-1-1 or 1-1-2. The man himself, Tom King. Hello, Tom.
Well, good to be here. Thank you.
How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Even in your honor too. Just so you know, I wore my Piggly Wiggly shirt. So.
Oh my goodness! Hey Abby, listen. Tom King is wearing his Piggly Wiggly shirt. My daughter works there, as a matter of fact. I just went to Piggly Wiggly to get Milo's tea, and it's delicious.
Just in your honor, I thought it'd be appropriate to wear my Piggly Wiggly shirt today.
Well, I appreciate you doing that, Tom. Well, Tom, listen, y'all. I kind of didn't want to catch Tom by surprise yesterday, but I have watched his video probably 5 or 6 times on the long-term 1-1-2 trade, and I found it fascinating. And as I've told a lot of you, I'll be trading a friend's account. It's going to be about $475,000. So what I told Tom that I would love to see him do is to kind of show us how that would work in a $500,000 account, and we can apply it to other accounts as well. But I was like, hey, Tom, since I'm going to be doing this, it'd be great to see how this kind of campaign would work in that account.
Yeah, absolutely. Be something good to jump into today. I think the key is figuring out what your core strategy is going to be. If that's going to be the 1-1-2, the 1-1-1, the 1-2-1, or whatever you want to do, just making sure you have a core strategy that you can build off of. From there, to me, the 1-1-2 has been a perfect core strategy to stick into most accounts. It's pretty resilient. In this downtrend, it's doing fantastic. It's a very resilient trade. Obviously, overall, markets usually go up, so it benefits as markets go up, but it also gives you some benefit when some extra benefit when markets go down. So I think setting it up in an IRA is, all of my IRAs, all of my family's IRAs, that's what they're all based on, is the 1-1-2 trade. And there's a lot of different versions that you can put in, a couple different types of adjustments. But the thing I like about the long-term version versus the original 60-day version is, at 120 days, you're spending less buying power per DTE if you were. So you're getting a little bit more credit, but you're spending less buying power overall. A normal 1-1-2 might take up, $8K in buying power in an IRA, whereas the long-term 1-1-2 might take up more like 9,600. So it's only a little bit more buying power for a lot more income. So I think it makes more sense, to do than versus the shorter term 1-1-2 trades.
Well, and one thing that I like too that you pointed out in the video is because you're going out farther in time and you're doing that 5 delta naked put, you can get much farther away from the money than you were that if you were doing the 60-day.
Yeah, 100%. So most of my current 1-1-2 trades, especially into like December and January, you're looking at 3,550, 3,700 on the naked puts. I mean, not that we can't go there, but we're 60, or 600, 700 points away from some of those strikes down at 3,700 or so. So you've got a long way to go. Doesn't mean you can't get there, but I like the fact that I can get farther away. I can get more credit, and it uses less buying power. I mean, and I think the one thing you and I chatted briefly on it, and I think I mentioned it in your Discord yesterday, was I just don't like to trade that much. So I don't want to put one on every day, take it off. I don't even want to do it weekly if I don't have to. So because you're putting these on and they last for 120 days, if you take off the naked puts, I usually do it around 95% or so, but whether it's 90%, 80%, whatever you want to do of taking naked puts off, you're still 90 days, you're still going to be in the trade for a good 75 to 90 days, but you don't really have to do anything. I just want to put it on, especially in an IRA, and I don't want to actively trade it. I don't want to have to pay anybody commissions. Just want to put a trade on that lasts me 3 months, is going to be pretty solid, and I don't ever have to make too many adjustments on it.
Good. I like it. And let me ask you this. It's one of the things that we kind of found in one of our sessions last week was that, I've been doing the 1-2-1 version where the things are calendarized, but we found that Stacy and James were not having the drawdowns that I was having for the grind down market that we've been in of late, which was really kind of telling, that it kind of operated differently. Now, I'm not saying that my positions were not as safe, but it was it affects the psyche a little bit when you're holding the position, even though your nakeds are safe, because that put debit spread is so much farther away from the money.
Yeah, because I think you do like 9 delta-ish, something like that on naked puts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a difference in just in a 60-day trade, a 9 delta and a 5 delta, just doing the 60-day trades is what, 37.50 and 30. And it's almost 200-point difference in a 60-day trade. And when you look at, like I said, a 120-day trade around there, the difference is going to be what, 3750-ish, 3700 and 3450. So you're talking 250 to 300 points farther away. When you talk 300 points on a $4,300 asset, it's a pretty a lot of extra room that you have to go. About 300 on, well, today we're up, but 43.95. I mean, I'm 7% farther away than you are. And there's no losing sleep on, I mean, you have to fall 7% farther on mine. And I mean, nothing wrong with the 1-2-1. It's an interesting strategy. I know Victor comes up with. You really got to see a pretty good sell-off anyway to get those put debit spreads doing a whole lot of anything for you. But in the meantime, at 9 delta, you're going to have a lot more pain on the naked puts and a lot bigger increase in your buying power if volatility spikes on you and the market drops. Both of those things happening. It's going to affect those positions a lot more. And now you've got to start figuring on, do I want to put hedges on? I don't really want to put hedges on. I don't really see a need to hedge a 1-1-2. Doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean people here don't go running home and pull your hedges off. If you want a black swan hedge, knock yourselves out. But if I've got a 20% downside protection where my naked put is, what the heck are you putting on a hedge for? So there's really no need to hedge something that's a 5 delta put. Now, if that gets up to 30 delta, okay, we'll take a look at it.
But I think what you do is you get a lot of let's see, I was reading something and I got distracted there. Igor says you get a bit more decay by going closer at the money on the naked short puts, but if the market rolls over, these puts will take more heat and buying power will rise more.
Right.
And someone also asked, Tom, with the 1-1-2, do you have 2 naked 5 delta puts? That is correct, right, Tom?
That is correct. That's the 2 in the 1-1-2.
Okay. And with the 1-1-2 that he's doing like we did with the 60-day, is the put debit spreads are in the same expiration as the naked puts.
Yeah, I played around with that a bit, and I think some members of the Mr. Top Tick Discord, and Igor's in with me there, so he may chime in a bit here. He's the smart one, so he can give you a little bit more insights on the technical and stuff that happens. But when you look at putting this on farther out, as you move away into the longer time period, again, it's going to give you a lot more secure piece. But you can figure out how you want to configure those 1-1-2s. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can choose all kinds of different deltas. You can choose all kinds of different widths. There's a lot you can do. We do about 4 or 5 different versions of it. Some are shorter, some are longer term. But when you look at, hey, do I want to put on the put debit spread for only 75% of the time? Why? So what's the purpose of that to begin with? Is the purpose because, well, I'm going to close those naked puts off, so why not only have a put debit spread that lasts as long as the naked puts? Well, I like the fact that I have put debit spreads sitting there right now that the naked puts have been long gone, and I'm sitting on a 50 wide put debit spread that's making me money. Had I put them on diagonalized or shorter term time period, they'd be gone by now, and I wouldn't have the negative delta that it gives me. And up until 10 o'clock this morning, everybody wanted negative delta. So now all of a sudden, there's a market bounce today. We're up 54 points, and everybody thinks the rally's back on. But I like the fact that I have that protection of a 50 wide for a long time, and let the decay on that happen, so that as we get closer to expiration, those things don't have a lot of extrinsic, and any move down is going to be magnified by that put debit spread. But again, anybody can do whatever versions they feel comfortable with.
Tom, one of my suspicions about this trade is, and you may confirm it or say that it's not so, but I've had this suspicion forever that these things are actually designed where you can actually take the naked put to expiration. I mean, you talked about taking it off at 95 or 90%, but really, many times there's no need to take it off, isn't it? I mean, you can actually let it go to expiration.
Yeah, totally fine. I mean, it's built. They're built when put on the way we normally do them. It's a 20% return on margin trade. So if they go to expiration and they come off, you're making 20% in 4 months. It's 5% a month or so. It's a good return trade on your money there too. And there's no reason to take the naked puts off. The only reason I really take the naked puts off, well, there's two reasons. I mean, the two reasons to take those naked puts off early. Some people like to do it earlier. And if you've got a larger account, you can take those things off at 80%, 90%, and then put another one on right as soon as you take one off, and just keep stacking them. You can do it a lot of different ways. The way I'm doing it and laddering the number of them that I ladder out, I just like the fact that normally I will close 2 of the naked puts at 95%, 2 of the different 1-1-2 trades. I usually have 8 running. So 2 of them don't cost me a penny. So I'm really only paying buying power on 6 of them at usually any given time. I mean, right now I think I have 7 because one's at like 90% today. But in a week or so, I'll probably take that one off, and I'll only be paying for 6 at any given time, even though I'll have 8 running. And I have 2 PDSs that work for free. But yeah, you can certainly leave it on. Again, most markets go up most of the time. So leaving it on to expiration and taking the full, we call it tail profit that's in there. Getting that full tail profit's great. But last year in the Mr. Top Tick thing, when we were doing this, my portfolio, the Income Navigator portfolio in there, we were up 80% last year as a whole. And the reason for that, the only reason we were up so much last year, I mean, I usually target 30% or so a year. That's our goal. The only reason we were up 80% last year was that we landed in the trap 65% of the time last year, which means you got all of that extra juice of a 50 wide put debit spread. You landed in that 65% of the time in a down market. That will juice your portfolio like nothing else.
Yeah, so it's really a resilient trade. And if, what we're hearing, if we are anticipating going into a slowdown at some point, even though it doesn't seem like it now, this seems like a perfect trade to have on.
Yeah, so it works really, really well. So if I'm laying this out for an IRAs and trading accounts, depending on whether you're on, Reg T, standard trading account, or you're in an IRA account where you're not getting the benefit, it's difficult to do this on anything but ES, because you're just in an IRA. You've got to have a very large IRA if you're going to be running it on SPX or something. So if you don't have the ability to trade futures, it's not really a great trade. We do some different versions in our Discord on it. So we do a variety of different versions. Igor puts on what he calls a 1-1-2 bear trap, which is an SPX version. So if you have a trading account, that's a great version to do, especially if you're larger, have a larger account or larger portfolio. If you're in an IRA or a smaller portfolio, then sticking with ES or MES or something along those lines is going to be a little bit better for you. But in an IRA, most typical IRA, and I'm using Tasty Trade as an example, and I'll take my IRAs as an example. If I'm putting on a long-term 1-1-2 trade, Again, I'm going out 180 days, putting on the put debit spread with the longs around 25 delta, going 50 wide, put on the naked puts at 5 delta. Overall, right now, if you guys are modeling that or you put that on right now, you're going to get, if you want, I can pop one up and do one, but I don't know if that's helpful or not.
You said 180 days. You mean
120,
right?
120.
Yeah, okay.
So if you're doing 120 days on those.
And I've got it where you can share your screen if you want to, Tom.
Yeah, I'll pop one up. Let me do that real quick. And I'll talk while I'm making a change here. But
that naked woman above your right shoulder is kind of distracting me a little bit. But yeah, over there, see her. Yeah.
I don't know what that book is.
I don't know. What is that?
I don't know. It's a book.
It's like one of those cherubs, those little fat kids with the bow and arrow or something.
I really don't know. I never really looked at any of those. All right, so let's jump in. I'll grab screen and let's jump into just putting one on, and we can get a sense of if I had a $500,000 IRA, this is how I would set it up. Now, it's going to take you 4 months to set this up.
Okay.
Because you're not going to put all 8 of them on today. Otherwise, you got all the same strikes, and your risk level will be off the charts. So
I'm really curious to see this how it's going to lay out.
All right, so let's jump in here. I'll clean this one off. We'll go out to 117. Again, I usually am pretty good about, and trust me, the Discord members are usually pretty good about saying, are we putting one on today? So as soon as the 120 DTE expiration rolls around, someone's going to remind me, hey, are we putting one on today? But for the most part, I'm looking for 120 days. If I was doing it today, it'd be 117. I usually won't go past it by too much, but I want to be in the ballpark. I'll pick around the 24 delta, go 5 wide. I like to stick around $8 on the debit. This one's 825. I'm not going to fret over that here. Then I'll go down to about 5 delta. It's about 15. Grab 2 of those. This is pretty consistent. About $22 to $23 is usually what you're going to see in credit. You guys all know if you're using ES, it's a 50 multiple. So you're really going to take in about $1,110 or so on this trade. So your trade's 1110. And if we took a look at this thing, I'm not a big fan of Tasty's analyze tabs, but here's the trade itself. So here's what it looks like. You're out 117 days. $22.25 is your credit that you're going to get. Now you can see. Let's move this thing to an IRA. You guys can see all my IRAs, but it's good. So if we were doing this in an IRA, you can see the buying power in an IRA is going to be around $11,000. So I got about $11,000 in an IRA. That's your buying power. In the trading account, if you remember, that was probably closer to $6,000 to $8,000, somewhere in there. I'd say $8,000 on this. So one trade is going to take up $10,000 in buying power. So we'll keep track of that number. That in an IRA, I'm going to use up, let's just say $11,000 on this trade. And if I land in the tail up on the top here, at expiration, we're going to take in $1,110. So $1,110 is what we get up in the tail here. If we dip down into the big fat trap here, we're going to make $3,600, which is your 50 wide, which is your $2,500 plus the 1110, or now it's 1113 as it keeps moving around. But that's your $3,600. You drop down here or get close to it, those put debit spreads are going to start to pay off. And I can go all the way down here to about 3460 before I start to really have, get assigned or something like that. So 3460 from here, from 4392 minus again 3460, 932, almost 1,000-point drop. And that doesn't mean we can't go there, but 1,000-point drop right now, I would feel pretty confident. This is going to net me that's about a 21% drop in the market. So the markets have to drop 21% for me to even worry about assignment. or worry about what to do there. I have other stops. There are other things that we can do. If the market starts to fall hard, you can see the T+0 orange line here. You can see how this does steepen. So if we fall fast, this is going to go negative, and it's going to go negative fairly quickly on you. It's not going to be a problem for the most part unless we drop 20%. But if you drop 5-10% in a short period of time, it'll be a little red for a while. But you're okay. So here's your IRA. If you consider that you're going to make $1,110 on every one lot of these that you do, that's going to take about $11,000 in buying power. For me, when I size trades, I use a 2% max loss as my sizing mechanism. Okay? I'm willing to take up to a 2% max loss on a trade. So of Tasty Trades, things that they talk about, there's probably only 3 things that I really agree with for them, but one of them is trade small, trade often. And trading small to me is keeping my losses to 2% or less. So how would I size this in a $500,000 IRA? And hopefully I'm there. If you need to interrupt, anybody got it? I can't keep up with chat. So maybe Igor will jump on those while they're coming. But in a $500,000 account, well, a 2% loss would essentially be a $10,000 loss. So my maximum contracts I would use on this would be 3. I might not do 3 quite in an IRA yet, but you might size up to it because I think you were just under 500,000. So if you're like 470, 480, well, that max loss would be around $9,000, which means maybe 2 contracts. So 2 contracts would be what I would do. My max loss typically would be, I would close it if I hit my max income, this 361. So if I was doing 2 contracts, your max loss here, 7,230. In the tail up here, you're making 2,023, and I'm using 2,100 in buying power. This is how I would size it for that IRA. So I would be doing 2 contracts in that $500,000 IRA. I'd be doing 2 contracts. I'd be taking in $2,200 roughly. I would be using 21,000 in buying power, and my max loss, because I would close it at a 1x max profit, it would be 7,200. Make sense?
Yes, makes sense.
Okay, so that's how I'm sizing, because now if you want to do more frequently, because I know you like to put these on a couple times a week and take some stuff off and manage more actively. I don't like to manage that actively, but if you wanted to cut the size in half and put them on weekly instead of every 2 weeks when another 120 day comes around, you could certainly do that. It may stretch out, some of your risk a little bit better, but it's also going to make you manage a lot more trades. I don't want to manage 16. I want to just manage 8. So I'm putting them on every 2 weeks. When another 120 DTE comes around, I'm putting them on every 2 weeks. So knowing what we just went through, if I'm putting this on every 2 weeks, that's going to end up to 120 days. If I had the full complement, never took anything off, that would be 8 trades. So 2 a month, 4 months, 8 total trades. So 8 trades are going to use up about 21K in buying power each. So that, you're what, $160,000 in buying power. And we like to keep buying power under 50%. I think you do as well.
Yes.
So if you have a $475,000 IRA, you're going to use no more than maybe 237,000 of that for buying power. Maybe we go up to 3 contracts here. If we did 3 contracts, we would be using about 30,000 times 8, 240. I mean, we would be right at the 50 line. So you're right at the level at 475 or 500. You're right at a level where you could probably go with 3 contracts, but you wouldn't be doing no other trades technically in that account. But that would be 50% of your buying power. So if I did 3 contracts, I think it'd work for you, but your max loss to me gets a little bit over my 2%. So I'm going to stick down, and this is how I'll probably use up the trade. So 8 of these are working. Every 2 weeks, one's going to come off, right? Once I get to 8, every 2 weeks, one would come off if you closed nothing early. So every 2 weeks on this trade, assuming that we land in the tail itself, you're going to make $2,200 every 2 weeks using 160,000 in buying power. Everybody's on board with that?
Hold on a
Everybody
minute.
listening?
Let me make sure. I'm a little slow. I went to University of Alabama, Tom. So if we I thought we were putting on 2 every month.
Yeah.
So
I will put one on a trade on every 2 weeks when there's a new 120. So I'll be putting 2 trades on a month.
Okay.
These are 120 days out, so they're 4 months out. So it's going to take 4 months for one to come off. So I put 2 on a month. For 4 months, I'm going to have eight trades working.
Got it. Two a month times 4 months. Okay, so if my max contract is 2, then I'm going to put 2 on every 2 weeks or 1 on every 2 weeks.
I would be putting 2 on every 2 weeks.
Got it.
Okay, and your 2 here again for 2 of them, your buying power is 21,000 to put on 2 contracts each time. So 21,000 times 8 total trades. It's going to be about 165,000 in buying power to start with.
Got it.
One of the unique things too, real quick, and Igor can go through this more at some point if anybody's interested, but these start out as you can see here, these are positive delta trades, but not hugely positive, but they are positive delta trades. As 112s age, they start to become negative delta trades. Okay, because your naked puts are starting to come off, especially if you're moving down. Your put debit spread remains intact. So you're starting to see, as the longer you leave these on, the actual delta in that trade starts to change a bit. So as you leave these on, you go from a positive delta to a negative delta. So it really keeps you pretty delta neutral overall in your account. But yes, so you'll be spending 165,000 to put on 2 contracts twice a month for 4 months.
Got it. And so what you would do is you would just say, hey, Bob, just wait till the 120 rolls up, and that's when you put it on, and then it'll roll up every 2 weeks.
Right. And that happens around the 15th and the 30th of every month, somewhere in that neighborhood. So today's what, the 6th? So it really could have been put on the 3rd to hit the 120. So right around the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month, somewhere around there is when you're putting these on, and then you're taking them off in 4 months later, and you're just napping while you do it. And as they come off, you should now, assuming they don't go in the trap at all, you're going to be netting $2,200. So every month you should be generating $4,400 in your IRA using about $160,000 of your BP. Make sense?
Yep. I'm perfectly on board.
So 4,400
yep.
on a $475,000 IRA. It's like 1% a month or something like that, because you're not maxed out on your buying power. If you were closer to 50% on these, you could probably go higher than that. I'm not advocating for people to risk a whole lot. For me, I'm a little more, I'm less risk averse, so I'm fine with, I would probably size it up just a fraction more and do 3 contracts, and I'd probably be generating, now the 3 contracts would take 32,000 in buying power. 32,000 times the A would be 240, which would be half of my 500,000. I would be fine there. My max loss is 10 grand, tad over, but at 5 grand, it's pretty much right on. So if I was doing a 500,000, even you're a little bit short of that, I think you said, but if I was at 500,000, I would be doing probably 3 contracts of these. So I would be generating about 6,600 a month in the account, just using this strategy alone, and I probably wouldn't do anything else. And 6,600 a month on 500,000 is about 1.3, 1.5% a month. So you're about 18% a year.
Yeah, that sounds
assuming
really
you never go in the trap.
Right. You never go in trap. And if we go in the trap, that's a great problem, because then you're going to juice those returns like you did last year at 8%.
Right. Right. And if you think and feel that we're heading towards any sort of a recession, which I think we probably are, and some sort of an event potentially coming up, it ain't happening today, but If you think sometime next year there's going to be some significant downward moves, these perform absolutely fantastic in those time frames. And I think most of our members would be say the same thing, that these during this last move down, these held up great. Some strangle trades that we didn't struggled a bit more, but in the moves, because they were some serious moves. But these 112s, they're so resilient, and they anchor your portfolio.
One thing, Tom, maybe what do you think about this? Since I'm almost at that point of between 2 or 3, couldn't I split the baby and say, okay, this 2 weeks I'm doing 3, the next 2 weeks I'm doing 2, then I'm doing 3, then I'm doing
100%. Yeah. Or you could keep it at 2 and be putting on some regular 112s or something like that in the meantime to use some of that other buying power, because this is your core. This is generating that core money. So if you're, again, generating $4,400 a month, that's not going to get you to your 20% goal or so, $4,400 a month. However, it's about 1% a month. That's a good foundation, but then you're going to have to juice it with something else. So yeah, you could do a 2, a 3, a 2, or 2 and then a 3 and then a 2 and then a 3. And what I would consider doing, if that's what you're looking at, is if it's a decent down move, maybe that's when I put on 3. If we're moving strongly higher, maybe I'm putting on 2 contracts in a stronger up move and 3 contracts in a down move.
Yeah, good.
Or you could just do one in between. I mean, you could add a 3rd entry for the month in week, instead of week 1 and week 2 or week 3, so doing it, you could add an extra 112 in there. So you could always add an extra one here or there.
Or as if you didn't want to do that big, and kind of like Mark brought up, he says, so if this would be my core strategy, what can I do during the downtime? I want regular stimulation.
So what we do is we trade a lot of strangles. So that's what juices our portfolio a bit, is we get some extra, the core is the 112, and then we may trade some strangles. We may trade some regular 112s. We have some, what we call a big ass 112, which is a much more hedge-like version. We came up with the FB 112. So we have a variety of different versions of this that you can trade. So a lot of, especially on our members in the Mr. Top Tick Discord, a lot of them will trade strangles. They may trade credit spreads. They may do a little bit of anything to keep themselves engaged and to make that extra money. And this is an IRA account we're talking about. So you're talking about making 18% in an IRA with this strategy. If this is a trading account, okay, now you're starting to talk about 24 to 27% a year using this strategy alone, because the IRA is going to be much more limiting on your buying power. But when I'm putting this trade on and I'm doing it in a standard trading account versus an IRA on that buying power, I mean, now I'm using, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 6K BP on this. So I would make the same amount of money, but only using half the buying power, or a little bit less than half the buying power.
And Tom, one thing that I could do, if you're sitting there going, "Oh God, I got to wait 2 weeks to put on a trade," what you could do is plug some of those holes and do some in the micros, right? I mean, you could just put on
you certainly could do that. I mean, all depends on what your trade plan is telling you that you want to do. I'm not telling anybody to be a one-trick pony and that this is the only trade they should do. To me, it's the core foundation. It uses the most BP for me. I think you can make it a core. And in my IRAs here, all I have is this exact trade that we're looking at right now, sized appropriately. And then I usually have 1 or 2 strangles that are working, that are very low delta strangles in an IRA, like 5, 6 delta strangles. Which are usually fairly safe, but gold this week, been a couple of us on it with the drop in gold. But for the most part, I'm just supplementing some of this with just low delta 90-day strangles that we put on, but you could certainly do some MES in there, or you could just do smaller ES, do it more frequently. Whatever it takes to get to that amount. But I think that's where, for your size account, that's how I would construct it first. Then I would see, okay, I have some buying power. So the next one I might put on a 3 contract. So I think the alternating between 2 and 3 until the account grows, it would be great. If you hit a couple traps in the meantime, you're right on the cusp of doing 3 contracts with that size account. If you were exactly 500,000, I would say do 3 contracts at a time, and I probably wouldn't do a whole lot else. But if you want to stay more engaged in the market, as people want to do, then lower the contracts on this and trade whatever else your trade plan tells you you can do. As long as you're making money, there's a lot of different ways to make that money.
Here's what I like about the strategy, Tom, is that in the bullish markets, you're going to do extremely well with this particular trade. Now, the bull market, if you're considering the SP 500 to be your benchmark, the SP 500 could possibly, exceed your return in this particular account. But during the bear markets is where this thing is really going to fly. And if you were to look at this trade compared to the SP 500 over a period of 5 or 10 years, I believe that we should greatly outperform the SP 500.
100%. I mean, while you look back, what's the average return of the S&P over time? Was it 8%?
Yeah, 8, 9 running there.
Okay, you're going to have some bull markets, but in bull markets, these are fantastic because they can come off quick. If you close those naked puts, you could put a new one on and add more trades as you're moving up. But it's very rare that you would underperform the S&P, but you certainly can. So just taking a look, what is the S&P this year? Year to date, S&P is up 13%. Even if the S&P continued at this, now again, there's an IRA and there's a trading account, 2 different returns on 112s, simply because of the buying power that you're using. In a trading account, you're going to return closer to, $2,400 a month using $32,000. So if I had a $500,000 trading account, I would be making a ton more than an IRA. But even an 18% in an IRA, I think it was pretty good. And then 30 to 32% in your trading account, just doing this strategy alone, I think makes good sense. And you're up, a year to date, 13% on SPY. You're up 15% in the last year alone. You still, even in the last year, we still haven't beaten it. And in the past 5 years, I think it's up 56%. So if I'm looking at the S&P over the last 5 years, it's up 56%, which is nice. Okay, but 56% is only 10%, 11% a year. I think you're going to be pretty hard pressed to beat a 20-some% return a year with anything else that's out there without actively trading. If you're great at day trading or whatever, knock yourselves out for it. 0 DTE, whatever stuff goes on. Well, we find other things to kind of juice the return.
And another thing I like about this, Tom, they always say that, oh man, if people start over trading this strategy, that the strategy won't perform. That's not applicable to this strategy.
Who knows? I mean, it's hard to say. And the one caveat I'll put in here is no strategy works forever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's no one strategy that works forever. This worked pretty good in both ups and down market. It worked fantastic in a down market. It worked great in an up market. So, no one strategy will work forever. At some point, who knows what happens in the markets? Certainly, certainly a black swan event or something like that. Well, that may not perform so well. But as soon as that happens, if volatility's up, and you also got to consider that we've been putting this on all year and doing pretty well. I don't know if I've got some year-to-date figures on it, but understanding that in a trading account, I'm probably closing 2 to 3 of these a month. We're making $4,000, something like that a month, using only around $80,000 to $100,000, and you're making $4,000 a month on that money. It's good money overall, but it gives you a chance to to increase or change the amount of trades that you have. But I think you just need to have something that's a core, and I'm not going to fuss with it. You could maybe also sprinkle in whatever other trades you like. I mean, I know some of the stuff that you have been doing with Victor's 1-2-1 and some other. If you want to throw one of those in to use some buying power, you can. And okay, now maybe you're using one of those or two of, I don't know how many contracts, I don't really know the buying power on those and in an IRA, but maybe in an IRA that's taking 10 grand or something. So you can put one of those on a month as well too, and there's your additional kicker. But I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to outperform it without really being a very active trader that's got some kind of a strategy. So I think it should last for a while, but again, no one strategy will ever work forever.
And that's why all of us, I mean, Tom, I know you're the same way. We're always experimenting. We're always tinkering. We're always trying to find something else, just to keep us, keep us in the game in case we are blown out on something. We'll survive with something else. Hey, James has got a question. Go ahead, James.
Hello, Bobby. Tom, much respect. Tom, I don't think I've ever talked to you, but I've watched a lot of your videos, and good job on all that. So if anybody is interested, I can, and I did this with you, Bobby, I think last week, but I can screen share and show a mature campaign. I've hidden my account information, but I can show the risk graph.
Oh, come on, James, do like I do. Show it all.
You're braver than I am, Bobby.
I think I'm dumber than anybody, Go ahead, James. Yeah, share. We'd love to see it.
That come up?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I've been putting these on for some time, the last 3 months. And so you can see as the campaign matures, this T+0 line here is actually, if the market goes down, it's increasing in value. So coupling that with strategies with the strangles and other strategies, if the market comes down, it softens and dampens that move to the downside. Plus, you still have the tail profit here. The other thing that I'm experimenting with, and I would call this pin the tail on the bear, or bear trap, tail pin, whatever, is come up here and in the 5 or 6 delta range, put a few of these, sell a little bit of call premium, not much, but a little bit, and just to try to enhance this tail profit a little bit.
Well, the amazing thing about what you've shown here, James, is you're hoping for a 200-point move down in the E-minis. Look at that. I mean, if you go from the 43.80 that you're now, you would love to go to 41.80. Look at that.
Yes. So
I mean, look at that. P&L at expiration, $430,000, and today would be up 149,000. I mean, you're wanting a 200-point pullback.
Yes, and if we even, if we go down further, we're reaching, looks like max is down here in the 3,900s. I would be getting nervous down there, but it's there, and the way this thing has been put on, and I've left a lot of those put debit spreads on, so as time goes by, this T0 line just starts popping every day. It really starts popping back here, and So
One thing
anyway,
you
that's a
just don't
mature
want with this
campaign.
trade, and appreciate it, James. And the one thing you don't want in this trade is you don't want a fast, hard down move. But I don't know when anyone would ever want a fast, hard down move in any trades. But you just don't want it to drop. You don't really want a 200-point drop today. You want a slow, methodical meltdown sell-off that drops 10% over like 6 months, like we did. You want that, and this thing is golden.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought a picture is worth 1,000 words. Just for anybody that is curious of what the campaign looks like maturing, that's it.
I like that. And James is trading, you're trading that in a larger account as well, James. How are you doing your rollout with the trade?
Well, if the market is moving up, then I'm taking those nakeds off at about 80% and going ahead and just, reestablishing because, that premium decay, I want to keep capturing that and trying to squeeze out that last 20%. It might take you 2 months, whereas the first 80% profit happened in the first month or 6 weeks. So go ahead and try to move them up. But there is, I see the advantage also of waiting to a 95% It's just, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Everybody's going to probably treat that differently.
Yeah, I don't like closing at 80 or even 90% because I just don't want to give money away. I'm not in a hurry for that money. So if I am in a hurry for the money, okay, close it at 80%. If we would have dropped today significantly, I was going to have some BP concerns. And if I have BP concerns, and I've got some of them at 88 and 80% profit on a naked put, I would have just closed those naked puts and alleviated any buying power concerns I had today. We rally, and so no issues there. But if you have any, I'm trying to keep my BP in a good range as you do on a daily basis. That's what, I look at 3 things. I posted that video yesterday. I look at 3 things. I look at delta, I look at theta, and I look at my buying power percent. And that's pretty much it. That rules my world. I know, Bobby, I think you're fairly similar on that. So, those 3 things rule my world. And if any one of those is getting out of control, then I'll start to look to tweak it a little bit without going too crazy. But if you need to take it off earlier, you can. There's no problem. I just don't like to take it at 95. I think is good because essentially that allowed me to scale up to a larger number of contracts than I was doing now. So what you're going to find, Bobby, is I would probably consider doing 3 contracts because I'm going to tell you that by the time you're 3 months in, the first 2 that you did are going to be at 95. You could close those naked puts. So you're only really going to be paying with buying power on 6 of the 8 at any given point in time. And when you do that, now you're freed up. Or as soon as you're about to put on a new 120, you take off the oldest naked put. And it probably we would do the same exact thing. It would free up all the buying power you would need to put on a brand new trade. So you really would only need to pay for 6 at a time and have 8 running.
Okay, good. Hey, and as far as juicing returns, you're at Tasty, so you're using about 10% of your buying power in the BIL, right? Talk to us about that, Tom.
Yeah, so that's a whole nother. I need a therapist for that, and not just Ed. So, I don't know. I've struggled with BIL. You can do treasury bills. You can do bill, whatever you want to do for it. These things like bill really messes with your margin a bit when it comes to futures, especially the way Tasty and Apex take care of it. Ed and I have had some side meetings on it just to try to figure out my account a bit. I had to really take a look at bill today because with bill taking up X% of my buying power on the spike this morning of volatility, on the drop, it starts to push me up to areas that I don't really want to be in. So taking off the bill piece would be, the easiest way to just free up your buying power. Bill's great to earn a little bit of extra cash on it. Igor and I were having a good chat on creating an account, doing treasury bills. But if you have, I think one of the best things, obviously large accounts help. The bigger your account, the nicer it is. If you're sitting with a 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 account, I don't think this stuff's really smart. I don't think trying to squeeze Bill in and doing all kinds of other things is good. I think you just keep trying to build that account. I've got $10,000 accounts that we run in the group, as well as 50 and 100. So as I think you got to be large enough to take advantage of the buying power from Bill or those types of things there, because small accounts are affected way more on moves than larger accounts are. But having Bill out there, even on a Reg T account, you're paying 25% margin. So if I used on a $300,000 account, if I wanted to use, let's say 10% of my margin, 10% of my account in margin, which would be like 30,000. For $30,000, I can spend a decent amount. I can get about $120,000 worth of Bill, making 5% a year, which is about $500 a month, using only 30,000. It's a pretty good return on your money while you're just letting your money sit there on the side. I think really good opportunities lie when you start to get up a little bit above 300, 400, 500,000 in a trading account, and you've got PM, because PM doesn't work beautifully with futures. Futures can impact PM a bit, so you have to have a little bit larger account with PM to trade futures correctly, depending on the strategies you're using. That's a whole nother session at some point in time. But I think you can build yourself a really nice account using treasury bills and using 112 trades and sit back and relax. But if you're like, who's it, Mark, I think wants to keep more engagement in the market, I'm okay. Now, I love engaging with the people in Discord. So I probably do more trades than I probably should. But I also just like to sit on a beach or a boat and do nothing for a couple of weeks. I'm okay not having to worry about what my account's doing and grab 15, 20% return on buying power on T-bills a year, as well as 15, 20% on 112 trades. And if you get a large enough account like Igor runs, and he does the same trades using SPX, okay, which is a much bigger commitment than ES is if you try to put these on. But he's able to be, when you've got a PM account and you're able to do the 112s type trades using SPX, or the bear traps as we call them. If you can do that in a PM account, you can pad a ton. You can max out, I think, at the treasury bill level, and really have a solid account with just two strategies.
Hey, speaking of strategies, have you tried this in any other markets other than the S&P 500?
We do. So we have right now, I have these running in oil futures. I have them running in Aussie dollar futures. I have it running in Euro futures. I don't have any in gold, but I have done gold. Gold's a little tougher. I had one running in NASDAQ futures. I've had some running in the Russell as well. So yes, you can do these, and that might be another way to juice your returns when you have some of that margin, because you're going to have different margin requirements in your IRA. So you may go to something like RTY or NQ or something like that, and you may want to consider putting something on there. Or in oil, I love doing them. Oil is probably one of my favorite things to trade of all. Love strangles in oil, love 112s in oil. Oil's been on a little bit of a tear, nice pullback. It's been a beautiful trade for a long time. But yeah, you could absolutely put these on in any underlying that you want and just add that extra couple $100 a month, $500 a month. So my core trades are a long-term 112. I supplement those with strangles. I also supplement it with 112, standard 112 trades on other futures, oil, gold, Forex, you name it. So by putting those on, that's how we supplement that core income that we know is going to happen every month. We add more income to it, and we don't have a ton of trades to manage.
Great. Well, we've gone for about an hour. Any other closing comments, Tom, you got on anything?
No, I think, like I said, it's been a great trade. Hopefully this was helpful.
Very
If you guys want to see what we're doing, you guys are also welcome to join into our Discord as well. Here, and there's a lot of my members, I think, that we brought over today. So you got a big group here, 84 people on here. So I'm giving you a giant group. So we got a bunch of people here. Check out what Bobby and his team are doing. If you want, I'll pop something in the chat. If you want to see where we are, you can join up on it. But I think the key here is have a trade plan, which you and I are both giant advocates are. So have a trade plan, trade your plan, come up with a core strategy, whether that's the long-term 1-1-2, the 1-1-2, the 1-2-1, the 1-3-1, the 4-4, whatever it is that you want to do. Have your core trades, stick to it. Don't hop around until you've decided that after 3 or 4 months, hey, these type of trades aren't working or doing what I need to. But we're a laboratory, like you said, Bobby, and we're always trying to come up with something new, which I know you are. All kinds of cool stuff happens from these types of trades. There's always somebody that's going to come up with some idea, like a Victor or somebody of, hey, let's try this. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but you got to try different things.
Absolutely. Tom, thank you for your time. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and we will see y'all Monday.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bobby.
Bye, Tom.